Hi, it's Doug DeVitri with the CoTrackPro Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. It's Elyse Salley, based out of Lake Mary, Florida. Elyse, how are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
Really good, really good. I'm super excited to talk to you about behavioral analysis and mediation. Um, it's kind of it's kind of awkward how excited I'm at to talk about this, but I really believe that the work that you're doing is helping changing people's lives. Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to start Serenity Family Solutions.
What inspired me was my own case. And sorry, my voice is going to be going in and out because I'm getting a cold. So I went through and still am going through my own case, and it is a paternity case, which just means that I was not married to my daughter's father. And it's been extraordinarily contentious and also very litigious. And I have written about that too as the factors I think that can create a high conflict case. And one of them is a side having endless amounts of money. And that's kind of what I've been going through, which that wasn't the case for me. So I've been pro se for it, and it's been the most traumatic thing that I've ever lived through. So I wanted to create this company, and one of our services, which is 2 Hour Divorce, that's our trademark service, and then be able to provide these alternatives to give better options, healthier options to families than what I've had to go through. So it's very
Wow.
personal to me.
Sure, I get that. It takes a lot of courage to have a voice, to speak out, rally, right, and get the help that you need. And what I love about what you've done is you've turned your pain into purpose, kind of like what I've done with
Yeah.
CoTrack Pro.
Yep.
You wear several hats as a behavioral analyst, mediator, parenting coordinator. Tell us a little bit about some of that work.
So, as far as my hats, behavior analysis is one of them. That's a big one for sure. I am board certified and licensed in it. And I started out doing typical behavior analysis. So, what over 83% of us do is that we work with people with autism and other developmental disabilities. And that just wasn't something that really sat with me as far as I don't have a personal experience with it, and I didn't really understand why all of us were doing that as work. So it kind of was like a door opened for me when I was able to switch to this, even though it did come from something terrible. Now I go over, different states and wherever to talk to other behavior analysts about, hey, this exists and this is something that we're allowed to do. So because I was already in such a mental health kind of field, I was easily able to sidestep into these roles. So the first thing that I took on was guardian ad litem. I did a training for that. And in the Florida statutes, there's nothing that really specifies what you have to do as far as licenses or certifications. So kind of just fell into doing that. And then after I did that, I did the training for mediation. So I did the Florida Supreme Court family mediation training. And that's something that nearly anyone can do because it's based off of a point system. It's based off of the type of degree you have, the training that you've taken, and then you need to do observations or co-mediations. And then there are some other categories of things that you can add, like maybe you're bilingual, so that will give you a few more points. So a lot of people can be mediators, even though we nearly just see attorneys. And then after I was certified as a mediator, because of that, I was able to qualify in the Florida statutes for parenting coordination because that does have limitations. It can be some of the licensed professionals that are clinical, like psychologists, social workers, marriage and family therapists, mental health counselors, attorneys, I think a few type of doctors, I think those certified by American Board of Neurology, interestingly enough, and then also mediators with a at least a master's in mental health. So that is how I was able to become a parenting coordinator.
Wow.
Um, yeah. So it's been a really fun path. And I like to talk about that with other behavior analysts and so they can visualize what they want to do. And I kind of talk about each service in our terms. I kind of liken it to what they're already used to. So in my mind, parenting coordination is very similar in ABA to parent and caregiver training. Guardian ad litem work is very similar to doing assessments when you're first discovering why an individual is engaging in these problem behaviors and what they can do instead. So whenever I started a new position, I was like, oh, this is like this. Oh, I can use this. So it's been very smooth.
What are some of the behaviors, right? If you could put them into specific categories, what buckets would they fall into?
Behaviors of who?
Oh, sorry. No, thanks for allowing me to clarify. Behaviors of some of the parents, or even the children that you're working with, because I think there's both of those can play a critical factor in how some of the outcomes play out.
So because I do so many different roles, I get to see a huge spectrum of behaviors and people. So when I'm doing these pre-suit mediations through 2-hour divorce, they are typically still living together. They're very amicable. They've just decided to get divorced. They're coming into the consultation together, and these families are going through the entire process beautifully. That so when I track data, that is something I'm looking for. Why is it so successful when it's pre-suit versus when it is court mandated? Then I'm on the other spectrum of I have these court appointed guardian ad litem cases where those are very high contention. And it's usually because something has happened, like there has been allegations of abuse or neglect, or a parent has withheld a child, or a parent has moved to another state or to another country. And so that's the opposite end. Usually these people have been in court for years. So they're already in that adversarial mindset of let's kill each other with litigation. So I don't know if I want to say specific behaviors from the people that I see so much, but I do think people really get caught up in the process, and attorneys, by no fault of their own, as soon as clients hire attorneys, they then view the attorney as their teammate and their co-parent as their adversary. And that can be a troublesome relationship because people forget that the attorney is there temporarily. You may stop paying and that attorney is gone, right? Or your case is resolved, so that attorney is gone. But then you're left with this parenting plan to have to work with the other parent for potentially a decade or more, depending on the age of the child. So I do think it is more of a mindset shift that people have when they're really deep in traditional litigation.
Wow.
I know
That's
that
a
was a mouthful. I don't know if I've
that's a
ever
lot.
talked that long
Yeah, no
before.
doubt. Well, in analyzing some of these behaviors, is there any testing that kind of happens or a line of questioning that you use to determine what their behaviors might be?
It depends on the scenario, of course. A big thing that I look for, especially in mediation, is I really like to look for people's motivation because, of course, I'm looking for potential reinforcers and other consequences to behaviors and seeing how people interact with one another and seeing how they interact with me. But I think that it can be more important to see why why are they wanting the thing that they want? So I may be able to pick out something like someone really wants the school zoning. Well, why? I need to know why. They may not want to tell me, but I'm going to figure it out because then I can better help. And so maybe they want something so badly that they will offer something else that is totally unrelated. So those are the connections I like to make of how can I help each person get their reinforcer in an appropriate way.
Wow, that's really interesting. So it's the underlying behavior that sometimes they might not necessarily disclose, or they might not be
Mhm.
telling the truth up front, which could cause even more conflict down the road, I imagine.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, in mediation, it's always a very delicate balance of how often do you have them joint? How often do you have them together? Another thing I'm really passionate about is doing risk assessments prior to mediations. That's something that I pull from having a behavioral background, is that I always screen for risks of suicide, homicide, coercive control, and interpersonal violence, and also if they have a support system. So I'm looking for elevated scores in any of the problem areas. And then if I see any of that, I'm making sure that they have a support system. Even if not, I'm reaching out to them and I'm suggesting therapy or something else. And then if there is a really high chance of coercive control, I've only had to do this once so far, but I had a case where I had to turn them down for mediation because it had involved strangulation and arrest. And the person who was strangled said, well, I just want to drop the whole thing if she'll just give me my dog back. And that's a sign of coercive control right there. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't mediate for you. You are going to have to do this through the court because it's safer.
Yeah.
So yeah, risk assessments are huge. I really, really wish every mediator would do them. I'm starting to send mine out to mediators and hoping that they're going to follow suit because it is so beneficial. I had a mediation a couple of weeks ago, and there had been domestic violence, and then the people were in a room together because the mediator didn't know. And you can't be wrong for something that you don't know. But we should have as much information as we absolutely can.
Wow. Wow. Now you've identified a term called applied behavior analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yep.
tell us what that is and how it helps parents understand how to change some of the patterns they might have.
Yeah. Applied behavior analysis is a really wonderful service. Behavior analysis itself, I think, is a wonderful science. To my core, I'm a behavior analyst because it is data driven and it is evidence based, it is scientifically done, and we're actually taking data on everything that we do. So let me back up further than that is that typically you see it. This is when you see it with people with autism, developmental disabilities most often because insurance covers it and it is so effective for that population that that's where most behavior analysts work. You will see it some other times in neurotypical populations or those that have mental health diagnoses, or maybe they're in inpatient care. Sometimes you see it done with animals. Sometimes you see organizational behavior, and that could be pretty cool too. That's working with companies, but it's typically, I mean, it really is typically people with autism. If you do a Google search for it, those are the first pictures that come up, and those are the first websites that come up. So it is a science that's trying to identify what are the problem or the inappropriate behaviors, why are they happening, what are potential reinforcers for that person, what are potential punishers for that person for each behavior, and then also what are alternative behaviors that we can teach them that are going to be for their functional level, their skill level, where they can then get the same reinforcer that they were using the inappropriate behavior for. So those are called teaching them replacement behaviors. Because we don't, if someone is, say, they're hitting their head to be able to get some food, and if that person has language, then we may be able to teach them to ask, can I have food? Or maybe teach them to go to the fridge to be able to get some food. It really just depends on the person. If it's someone who's lower functioning, then you may be teaching them to touch a card that is a picture of food, or touch an iPad that has a picture of food, to then be able to get the food. So you would no longer provide food for this. You would direct them to doing the thing that's not going to harm themselves. And that's now how they get their food.
Wow. So I can only imagine that some co-parents are flying blind without one of these, right? Or even maybe the courts are too, because they're making assumptions based upon what they see in an already stressful situation, and they might perform differently.
Mhm. Yeah. I think the biggest struggle that I run into as far as the courts not having an awareness of behavior analysts and that we're just not utilized in this system yet is that when there are people, especially children with developmental disabilities, potentially those who are non-vocal, and you have someone that goes in like a guardian ad litem to interview them, then if that person doesn't have the training to know how to interview that person or how to get language that that person knows how to use, then they're not going to actually have a true interview of that person. So that is something that I tried to get out there too, is that if there is someone like that involved, even if it's a guardianship case, I mean, I'm a guardian ad litem on guardianship cases where there are adults that will always be dependent on their parents. And I will say that I'm able to go in to be able to correctly assess this person as a guardian ad litem role.
Wow. Wow. So, as far as setting the tone, how do you shift the mindset from this excessive confrontation, right? And jabs and everything to a place of collaboration where you can meaningfully work
Mhm.
together.
Depends on the role because I don't know how much you know about guardian ad litem. That is an investigative role. It's not a therapeutic role. Parenting coordination is a therapeutic role, but it has limits. So if I take on a case and as soon as the parents get my information, if they're sending me 100 messages of pictures of marks and bruises, then I see this family is not in that spot yet to be able to benefit from a therapeutic service. And I'm going to recommend a guardian ad litem or a social investigation or someone else who can help there. So I do all these roles, but I can only ever do one at a time, and I can only ever do one for a family. So if I've been someone's mediator, I will only ever be their mediator. I can't be anything else for them. I think I do, it's helpful that I do know about all the other roles and I know people in our area who do them and are very good, so I can recommend them. But it's not something where I can transition between one and another. So as far as actually decreasing conflict, the really only place that I'm doing that is in mediation or collaborative divorce, because that's the appropriate context to do that.
Gosh, it just seems like such a better way to go about it. Not
Mhm.
just money, but time. Um, And I was thinking too, as let's say a newly divorced couple, right? It seems
Mhm.
like such a educational learning curve to understand the difference between each one of these roles because you might say, well, if they come to you first, you might say, well, I can be your mediator in this situation, or you might say I can
Right.
be your parenting coordinator. How
Correct.
do you evaluate that choice? Kind of when you're in the moment and just making a first assessment of the situation.
Listen to what they're saying. I really listen to what people are saying. And to be honest, in family law and in families falling apart, we are regularly seeing the same things over and over and over again between all families. I know it feels so terrible and so different to every person going through it, but there are underlying factors that happen in any interpersonal relationships. It's just helping to get them out. So I think that I am very welcoming. I hope that I'm very welcoming. I've heard that I'm welcoming and that I'm warm. I do think that having that behavior background helps me to just be able to get people to open up so I can help them best. Because the more they share, the more I can help. And I tell people that too, especially in mediations. I tell people with this background, I really want you to feel safe to feel your emotions, express your emotions. This is not some cut and dry. It's not a courtroom. You don't have to stand up and object. You're just here as a person.
Sure. And, especially when emotions run high, how do you keep the focus on the child's needs rather than maybe just personal convenience?
Well, that's when you have to be kind of crafty. I don't get a lot of emotions running high, but I do sometimes. I have had to I've had to initiate breakout rooms when I couldn't get people to stop talking to one another. I haven't really had it in person yet. So as far as my office, it is a very serene space. It has the one full wall that they are looking at is forest wallpaper. If they look a little bit down, there's a nice like a tree table and then a fountain. And so it is a very calm space already. And I think in person it can be easier to be calm because there's more body language taken into account, and there's me there, I'm a third person, or there may be an attorney or a financial neutral there, and people don't typically like to escalate in front of other people. On Zoom it's a little more common that it will happen because it doesn't feel as real.
That's
So
interesting. Look,
yeah,
you can't punch me through the screen, right?
I mean, yeah, it's different. You still have some body language, but you have less of it. And there was a study by, I can't remember who now, it may have been Ellis or something, and they found that over 93% of language in mediation was
Yeah,
nonverbal communication.
yeah, yeah. No
Yeah.
doubt. When taking this to the courtroom, right, where it's extremely stressful, right? How can
Mhm.
attorneys and judges use this behavioral science to inform their decisions in family cases? Is
It's
that
gonna
it?
be it's gonna be such a long road. I mean, my kids are little right now, but when they're a little older, I'm gonna do the neuropsychology PhD, and I want to do studies on what's happening in the brain and the body, not only for the litigants, but also potentially for the attorneys and the judges, and what's happening in a traditional courtroom versus what's happening in mediation or collaborative divorce, or maybe even arbitration. I'll have to see what's most important at the time. And I just want to be able to have it actual study, because that's what people listen to, that shows, hey, this is what's happening to your body and your brain when you're doing this. Even
Mhm.
some of the judges, it can't be healthy to have to do that all day, every day. And I think that little by little, we should try to make policy changes and procedural changes as to how we deal with family law as a whole. I think going through it as a pro se litigant, having to stand at certain times, speak in certain times, sometimes only speak in questions, only being able to ask certain questions. It is a song and a dance that humans who aren't attorneys don't know how to do. And because of that, it is extremely stressful.
Well, even so, let's say you've put together this example, right? And you're called in to be an expert witness, and you've put together, you have all this research. It'd probably be the opposing counsel to try to even tear that down. And then what do you
Yeah.
have?
Yeah. Yeah. So I haven't done that yet. I know you have that site, that service from my site. I have that on my site just in case. But so far, everyone who has come in asking about that has been able to transition it to a guardian ad litem role. The issue with the expert witness testimony is that if you just have one parent who wants a service, sort of like guardian ad litem, and it's not court ordered, then you can't force the other parent to engage in it. So it's kind of a one-sided thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
So it's always there in case people really want it, but I do tell them that you will have more oomph to it if you're getting a court ordered investigation.
yeah. Yeah. So, taking care of yourself first is one of the most important things, right? So you can be
Yeah.
in a healthy mindset,
Hmm.
not just as a co-parent, right? But as even as a professional in dealing with some of these things.
Yeah.
How are you integrating your practice to help support mental health and I guess overall health?
For the people,
Yeah.
I'm very
Maybe
intentional
there's some
about it.
recommend maybe there's some recommendations that you might have, or maybe you have a set of tools that
Yeah,
you would recommend or use for yourself.
sure. I am very intentional about mental health, and I think because it's such an important thing for me that it comes out in everything that we do. And if I just had to list it off, I would definitely say risk assessments are a huge one. Having a calm environment is a huge one. Letting people know that the process they're going through is voluntary. They need to have consent with themselves and they should be comfortable. I make people aware well of that, that they can have their feet up, they can take breaks, they can eat. I always have food, like lots of good food and snacks and drinks at the office if people are in person. Um, and then even just so much so that the company is anti-oppression. I think that can be good for a lot of people's mental health, especially for those who are feeling oppressed in some sort of way. So I'm pretty vocal about that. Um, I don't know. That's all I can think of right now.
Yeah, no, it's great. Every little bit helps, right? It's not just one thing, it's just a
Mhm.
combination of things to help move the needle forward. Let's look into the future, right? Like what do you see? What are you most excited about when it comes to some of the new ways of practicing, right? Collaborative practice is
Mhm.
a new one.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe it's the technology that you're working with or seeing how AI is integrated with into the
Yeah.
equation. What are you most
Okay.
excited about?
Multiple things. So yes, new technologies. We added on some new software this week. So I'm really excited about that, obviously, because the less manual admin work I'm having to do, the more effective I can be in my actual roles. And then, of course, my 2025 data is going to be coming out in January. I track data every year on the success rate of mediations. And in 2024, I was mainly tracking the difference between whether there were attorneys in the actual mediation versus whether they were pro se. And my numbers were 93% full agreement if they were pro se versus 25% agreement if there was an attorney in the mediation room. This year,
Wow.
however, I want to track not only that, because I've noticed another pattern that attorneys so far in our company only come into mediations that are they're already litigating and they're court mandated. We haven't had any attorneys come into pre-suit. So this year in 2025, what I want to track is the percentage of pre-suit success rate versus the percentage of court mandated, because I think that's going to be an even better indicator than the attorney's presence. So I'm really excited to see that and show that in a way that other people want to see it.
Well, no, I absolutely love that. I love data. I love the visualization of data. I love playing around with the tools that help show data in a unique way. And I also imagine what you're kind of creating is your own framework, which could potentially be
Yes,
used as a model for
right.
other states, because we all know that the situation is state specific, right?
Mhm.
Because I just haven't seen anything
Yeah,
like that that shares that type of data
right.
that gets to the root of it.
Right. Yes, I haven't either. So I'm excited for that. And I even think that it's county specific too, because that's another thing that I'm always looking for is we have so many people who are attracted to us because they want it to have a court-free process. And that's what we offer with 2-hour divorce. And I'm always reading different counties' policies and procedures because I'm a total nerd with that. And then also seeing what goes them through successfully. So I just had a case go through Hillsborough now successfully with just getting their final judgment emailed. So whenever I see new changes going forward in that, I get really excited. I add it to our questionnaires and all our policies and everything to be able to have a further reach of, hey, this is a really good service. And now in these, and these counties, you can go ahead and do it and just get your judgment emailed to you. So, I
Wow,
mean, it's beautiful.
that's so great. And tell us where we can learn more about your company.
So
Maybe
you can go
website, maybe
to
social media channels to follow.
Yeah, we're on most of the social media, not TikTok because I'm not that cool, but we're on Facebook and Instagram and I think X, which I guess used to be Twitter. And the website is serenityfam.com. And you can see all the services there. You can see about us. We have multiple mediators. We're about to be hiring another person, so that's really exciting as well. And you can also call us 407-377-7147.
Wow, very
But yeah,
cool.
we're accessible.
Well, Elise, thanks so much for being a part of the CoTrackPro podcast. I know you're a valuable asset to your in your community, and also hopefully soon nationwide with this new data framework that you've put
Yeah,
together.
we'll see. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.